Welcome to the launch of a new campaign, CSI's Young Professional Series. CSI is excited to announce the launch of a new audience-driven campaign focused on young professionals involving education, outreach, and leadership development. During the launch, we're going to give a brief overview of the campaign, explaining the education curriculum, the professional development tools that will be available, communication channels, and any upcoming events geared towards young professionals in the industry. So who are we? We are CSI staff and young professionals just like you. I am Kate Solomon, CSI's Marketing and Membership Manager. And Matt, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Kate. I'm Matthew Fox, currently the Manager of Community Development at CSI.
So Matt, what is YPS?
Alrighty. Well, YPS, besides another acronym for you all to learn, obviously stands for Young Professional Series in this case. But really what it is CSI's active attempt to do things I guess we've been doing for many years, and I'm sure most of you on the call are used to hearing conversations about this. But it's CSI's active role in finding a campaign that's truly driven towards you all as young professionals. I know the industry has talked a lot about emerging professionals as a title that vaguely describes some of you, but really young professionals is looking more at the idea of those individuals that are kind of just starting out in their career, not necessarily restarting a new career or changing career paths, but those that are physically young in the truest description, hopefully at heart and at mind, but really looking at the idea of how we can help you all not only better understand the profession you've chosen to join, but also get feedback from you on where the profession might be going. So in addition to these monthly webinars that we'll be talking about a little bit more later on in this call, we're also talking to you about different ideas of professional development, things that you might have not picked up in your days at school, or that you started to slowly pick up now as interns or as full professionals in your firm that we can share with other individuals. Kind of that whole what did I wish I knew 5 years ago kind of concept, but with CSI helping to kind of structure that mindset behind it. Do keep in mind that with many of our other campaigns, like our practice groups and other social campaigns at CSI, the idea behind this is to get your feedback. While we may structure some of the ideas, it really is you helping to guide where we're going as a group. So feedback is always wanted, and we'll talk about ways in which you can do that later. Additionally, keep in mind that this is free to all. You do not have to be a CSI member. You do not have to pay in some way or another to access this information, but rather we want to have this out there as just an additional tool that you may be able to go to or use with some of your fellow coworkers to be able to continue to grow in your professional development.
Thanks, Matt. So this is really an empowerment series. It's designed to not only provide industry education, but also professional leadership skills and business training. So you're really going to be confident to become change agents not only within your firm, but within our industry. So the basic outline and components of the YPS series is a monthly educational webinar, a monthly communication bulletin that will highlight upcoming events, recordings, blogs, LinkedIn discussions, a resource library of various supplemental documents, and these are meant to help with business and leadership development training, so it's not necessarily all about the commercial construction industry. And we're also looking to continue the conversation. We really want you all talking to each other and, of course, talking to us, and we'll be going over later in this webinar a variety of different communication channels we're excited to learn so you can really connect with other young professionals in the industry. So the basis behind these webinars is providing a basic knowledge of all aspects of the project's delivery cycle. What Matt and I are calling the Project Management Team Series, participants are going to be exposed to aspects of the project delivery cycle, such as the team members, their responsibilities, and how they effectively communicate to get the job done, both on time and on budget, which everyone wants to do. This curriculum is really focused on creating a foundation for successful workforce collaboration. Matt's been really involved with the webinar part, so Matt, do you want to give more of an overview of what's going to be going on?
Sure. As many of you may or may not know, CSI is one of those few professional organizations that has no specific stakeholder in the industry, however is hopefully seen as a non-biased group that helps facilitate communication among all entities of the construction industry. With that, our education tends to be a little bit more broad in scope, unlike some of you may be familiar with working with the AGC, the AIA, the IEEE, and so forth. So as a result, while most of your individual professional organizations might focus on you specifically in your audience, education both within your college career as well as potentially work development in your firm tends to be focused on what your daily tasks are without really integrating who it is you're actually working with. CSI for many years has called this the project team. Typically focuses 4 major entities within the project description. There's actually many more players that you all either have worked with or will be working with in your near future. So Caitlin, if you actually go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit more about how we want to ideally break down this session. So looking at kind of those main core areas, taking those original 4 that CSI used to describe in our PRM back in the days, and looking at who are the major players that affect not only your current project you may be working on, but your potential future professional growth. So you see here the idea of understanding the different players is kind of the main theme behind each of these monthly webinars. So at a basic level, the title should easily tell you who the audience is that will be speaking. That doesn't necessarily define who the audience is we hope attend. So you see here, starting with the first one at the top, understanding the owner. The fundamental keystone to all projects is the person, obviously, that writes the checks. But as you'll learn out later, there's more to that than just the person giving out money. There's, the end result of how they want to use it, what is their major intent behind the project, working with that individual. And going down the rest of this list, you see probably at least somewhere the profession that you would most identify with. However, these other individuals are people that you will most likely have to work with, either within your own firm or within the overall project team when working on an actual real-life project. So thinking at the idea behind these being a focused understanding of what each role does, because obviously you know what your job does, but you may not necessarily understand what everybody else is doing except for when they're interacting directly with you. So the first half of each of these sessions, ideally bringing in somebody that represents one of these titles to bring their point of view to their job description to the overall end project. And then focus the second half of that session on allowing the audience of everybody of the different other professions to ask questions about how do we engage with you, what do you expect from us, at what point in the project should we expect to be working together, things of that nature. Those questions that maybe you aren't able to ask in your office of like-minded professionals, but is information that is extremely helpful to better understanding the overall scope of a project.
Yeah, as Matt once explained it to me, when you know who the players are, you can finally successfully play the game. So it's all about creating that foundation for workforce collaboration, understanding the other parts that come into the project teams and how you specifically interact with them effectively. Now, aside from the project management team series, we're also going to be providing resources for professional development of business skills. We recognize that as young professionals, you're seeking information on leadership development, transferable skills, and general career information. And that's because Matt and I are looking for the exact same things. So this series is designed to help provide those leadership skills training to empower you again to really be those change agents in your firm, to have the confidence to take it to the next level, and if you're later on in your career already going down that professional path, to share with those that are just starting out what they need to know. So we'll be providing supplemental documents such as business skills, leadership training, how to network, how to have best practices when going to convention, and we're sharing these all in a resource library that's going to be on a microsite that Matt will describe later. And we're also inviting you to share content with your fellow young professionals through the various communication channels, and especially with those such as Twitter and LinkedIn. Speaking of communication channels, we're going to be going through how we really want you guys to outreach and engage with us throughout this year-long campaign. The first is going to be a monthly bulletin. This is going to be a targeted newsletter strictly about the YPS. It's going to give you upcoming webinars, educational recaps and recordings of past webinars, highlight LinkedIn discussions, blogs, articles, and having those links to the supplemental documents. Now you can go ahead and subscribe to this monthly bulletin at the YPS microsite in the Discuss area. So speaking of the microsite, Matt is our technical microsite genius, and he can go over really what it's about and how you can use it.
All right, thanks. So currently, if anybody's hearing this and immediately going to go check out the page, a lot of the content is just starting to pop up. But as a first starting point, I guess the word microsite may be confusing to some of you. Its basic title seems to imply a small site, which is a good assumption. What happens is CSI actually has our main site at csinet.org. But again, going back to the idea that CSI represents the entire industry, we have a lot of content that tends to build up quickly and becomes very hard to find things. So a couple years ago, CSI started launching microsites for individual chapters of CSI, and that process is also available for additional information. So the idea behind young professionals, not only you all as an audience we're trying to work with directly, but also understanding that the advanced content that CSI may have on our website, while useful to you down the road, there's that information in between that sometimes gets lost somewhere within our website or isn't there at all. So the idea by allowing us to have our own microsite that looks very similar to the CSI National website, but all content on it is really focused towards you as an audience and your input and feedback as well as your engagement with us. So very easily, as you see the address on the screen there, just yps.csinet.org. Good place to go as kind of a starting point along with some of the other communication channels we're talking about. Ideally in the near future, there'll be links to a lot of information related to recordings such as this webinar, which you may actually be watching on the site right now, as well as links to RSS feeds of content and information that we find is helpful, but also maybe information that you've sent to us that we are then passing along to everybody else. As Caitlin mentioned, a full resource library of content, so articles, documents, additional white papers and information that is either produced by CSI, perhaps produced by one of you all, or that is found out in the world that may be of help for you. The idea behind the microsite is really a one-stop shop. Maybe you log in once a week while you're in your office and to see what additional professional development content might be there, or just a quick, easy read of information while you're on a lunch break. Very quick and simple, hopefully, to navigate. As you saw in one of the previous slides, everything is kind of broken up into 3 main categories. Learn, discuss, and attend. So easy to figure out if you're trying to learn or discuss, or build up any kind of content. The tab with the information below it will be information related to this series of topics leading up to the Understanding the Building team, as well as some other information there that we'll be collecting, RSS feeds and so forth. Again, also then the discuss will be links to all of the different ways in which we'll be using communication as we're currently talking about now. And then lastly, the attend will be registration links for upcoming webinars, as well as any other events or information we'd like to promote out to you as well. So quick and simple, hopefully easy for you to remember which one you're looking at based on what action you're currently actively trying to do. And remember that the site can continue to grow and expand. So of course, if you find anything you'd like to add there, be sure to contact us and let us know.
So for those of you watching online right now, I highly recommend you bookmarking that website immediately. I know I have already. So a lot of you watching might have already joined our CSI Young Professionals LinkedIn group. We started that recently and got a great response already. Matt kicked us off with the first question. And again, we're trying to find a safe space, so to speak, where you guys can connect with those other future leaders in the industry. So it's ways to start, participate in discussions, ask your questions, share those resources for professional development, and it's really just a place for camaraderie and to connect with those that are involved in the series. CSI has always been very active, and LinkedIn is one of our most popular social media channels, so we're hoping you as a subset will really get involved and take advantage of this site. And of course, join us on Twitter. Matt and I are also, again, both very active on Twitter. I am slightly addicted to it. My handle is at CaitlinSolomon3. Matt's is at mfoxcsi. And if you would like, we encourage you to follow CSI National at CSIConstruction, which is another great place to just get news in general about the industry, connect with our online community, and also learn about upcoming events aside from this series that you might be interested in. And we encourage you to include CSI YPS in the tweets. If you've noticed, Matt's put up the footer at this webinar to highly encourage you. And share articles, share highlights, questions, news. Matt and I both check this daily, so we'd love to interact with you and kind of form our own online community just for this series. Again, this series is designed to connect young professionals and provide outlets for communication, so really take advantage of it.
Additionally, keep in mind, for those of you that also may want to follow any of us, these Twitter accounts that both Caitlin and I have are also active for many of the other campaigns that CSI hosts. So it's also a great way to not only engage with us on this with the YPS campaign, but also see potentially some of the other information that CSI is working on. I'll openly admit mine is mostly active when I'm doing any of the CSI practice groups. So it may also be a great way for you to just pick up little tips and tricks along the way for other professional skills or aspects, whereas Caitlin is much more active on her end as it relates to CSI news on a weekly basis, monthly basis, as well as all the events she's able to attend. So again, keep in mind that following us is not only just helping to access YPS information, but also maybe get a better flavor for some of the other content that might be available to you within CSI.
All right, now Matt's going to talk to you about some upcoming events, including our first live webinar, which is happening in August.
Alrighty, so as Caitlin just mentioned, August 21st is the intent to start the official Understanding the Building Team webinar series with the owner, as I had mentioned previously. The intent or the idea behind the webinar is also we will host these on a regular monthly basis, currently shooting for the third Thursday of each month. So hopefully that's an easy thing you can try to bookmark into your schedule. The webinars typically will be around an hour. Obviously that depends on audience feedback and participation. So the more of you that come and join, the better chance of us making the full hour or maybe even going a few minutes after. But also keep in mind that if you can't make these, I know some of you obviously depending on your time zone or your workload, there's a problem that you may not be able to attend some of these sessions as we go along. Don't feel worried or feel like you shouldn't get engaged as a result of that. Similar to this webinar now that you're most likely watching in some window pane either on our YouTube channel, the website, or elsewhere, all webinar recordings that are for members, staff, or open to the public are recorded and launched through our YouTube channel, which then allows the video to be embedded into many other audience areas. So August will be the first start of this session. I'm currently finalizing the end of the speakers, looking to actually have a panel of owners that'll be able to sit in on different points of view within the public and private sector to give a good introduction into understanding the owner's intent behind building a building. Seems to be a very easy concept initially in your mind, but it actually can be something that's easy to forget and may be helpful to be reminded of. That first and foremost, the owner and then the occupants of a building are the reason why most of us have jobs, and as a result they have a very different intent as to why they're working with a project team to get that end result. So a good starting point for us to actually start this series, and then as a reminder then through each of the additional series that we talked about, those 10 different professionals that we'll try to learn and understand as we go along, is that we all work for the owner in one way or another, either as a contractor, subcontractor, or a consultant. So again, it kind of comes back to that: who are we serving and why are we doing it? So why not start with that audience first? So again, August 21st, we're shooting for 2 to 3 Eastern. Information for that will be available. The registration link will be on the microsite probably within the next hour or so for you to be able to log in and register for that event. We do ask for your participation, as I mentioned before. The webinars will be scheduled so that there'll be a slight or a small introduction area where the individual who's representing the audience we're talking to will be able to talk a little bit about where they see themselves within the building team, and then we'll really kind of open up the floor for you all to ask questions. If you haven't been to a CSI webinar before, since we do record it, we tend to have the lines muted just to eliminate the amount of background noise. However, we do unmute those lines as well as take questions and answers through the GoToWebinar system, through Twitter, and through many other ways, even as well as submitting questions in advance that can be asked along the way. So the audience participation is still actually very high for these webinars, and we look forward to having you on them.
And as Matt mentioned, using that hashtag below that we already talked about, CSIYPS, I will be live tweeting through the event, so please join me for a tweet chat. Ask your questions. I can relay it to the speaker, or if you just want to have a conversation with a fellow young professionals participating online, it's a great way to enhance your learning experience. And again, these webinars are the perfect reason to subscribe to the monthly bulletin and to bookmark the microsite. We will highlight upcoming ones as well as recorded ones with recaps on each of those. So really take advantage of our communication resources so you can stay in the know, or if by chance you missed one, you'll be able to catch up and keep in touch with the series. Now, I personally am very excited to announce this event. Thanks to our sponsor, Tanemic, CSI is holding its first ever Young Professionals Mixer at Construct. Construct 2014 is in Baltimore this year, September 9th through 12th, and I'm going to be sending out invitations for this specific event. It's a casual, fun gathering of future leaders in our industry, so look for event details both through email, if you subscribe to our bulletin, and I'll be posting it on LinkedIn. It's going to be food and fun at a local brew pub, Pratt Street Ale House. And so if you're attending Construct or if you're just in that general area, so DC, Baltimore, Northern Virginia, I really encourage you to come. We've never had an event like this, so we're really excited to find that community. And even though we want a community online, it's always great to meet face-to-face. If you're attending Construct, I also highly recommend you take a look at a few other CSI events happening that week, including an Introduction to Blogging panel and the CSI Tweet Up. So again, be looking for the microsite and our LinkedIn group for more information about in-person events along with online events. So Matt, what do they do now?
Well, besides applaud Caitlin and I's wonderful skills of PowerPoint presentations, no, really, as it kind of says here on the screen, some initial actions that we'd love for you to take, or at least think about taking in the near future, not only because we want to help build this audience and get to know you, but also because we really do think that the content we'll be producing will be helpful to many young professionals out there. We would love you to go check out the microsite. Again, remember, because this is a new campaign, you may not have as much information there as you're expecting with a full-fledged, 5-year-old website, but know that that content is growing and you actually have the ability to help add to that content. So definitely check out the microsite as soon as you can, or, take a rainy afternoon in the near future and pop on there and see what you can find. Join the LinkedIn group. I know we have, as of this morning, there was about 85 of you already on there. I'd love to see that number continue to grow, not only because my personal network doesn't seem to interchange with most of you. My years of working with CSI has mostly been with my committee members and board members, and it'd be great to start meeting those individuals in the profession that are around my same age and same level of experience in the industry. So join the LinkedIn group. Again, that's also where we'll start some discussion. Obviously, some conversations will bleed over to our other social strategies, whether it be through YouTube videos, whether it be through answers on the microsite or answers through Twitter. But really, we'll kind of focus a lot of our main discussion ideas through the LinkedIn group. So it's great to have you there so that we not only build each other's voice up, but also be able to share some helpful information. Again, the webinar coming up in August. We'd love to have you attend that session, or again, plan to look for the recording of it afterwards. And then in order to be able to hear about what's coming up after this, instead of just, contacting Caitlin and I, which we'd love to talk to you, making sure that you subscribe for the bulletin is the best way to get updated on information as it happens. As this is a new campaign, and this Caitlin and I are kind of figuring out who our audience is and what they all want as we go along, the bulletin is the best way to figure out if anything changes. We add new things, we evolve things as we go along. So definitely you want to look into that. It's only going to be one email a month for that information, so I promise we won't spam you with anything, and it should hopefully always be helpful. A quick 5 to 6 minute read to go through some information. And then lastly, if you found out about this either through a fellow young professional or through an office or as a member of CSI or the LinkedIn group, I'm sure you know other people your age and experience level in the industry that may also benefit from this. So even if you don't do the other 4 things, if you can at least advertise this quickly to somebody else in the office or at your next happy hour, that really does help build the audience to not only make it diverse. We don't want everybody here of a specific age group or a specific profession. We really want to be able to have all of you to be able to share that information and kind of help each other as we go along in the profession. So quick heads up to one of your friends or coworkers does almost as much good for us as liking or favoriting a YouTube post, because building that audience really allows us to have a better understanding of who we can help and what kind of information you all want from us.
And Matt and I are both well aware that there might be some older or more professional members watching this too, just curious about this new event. So we also encourage you to spread the word as well. If you're a professor, send it to your students. If you're in the workforce right now as a professional in the industry, spread the word to your mentees or your interns, Or if you're in your late 30s and you're wondering if this is for you, again, spread it to your colleagues. This is not based on a specific age. It's more just trying to get those starting their careers and how we can help you. And as Matt and I said earlier, we'd love for you to join us and really take part. This is a year-long campaign. We're excited to talk to you, and we're really looking forward to starting this community that we think CSI in the industry has needed for a while. So if you have any questions and you don't want to ask them on Twitter or LinkedIn, you can email both Matt and I. My information is there. Again, I am Kate Solomon, CSI's Marketing Membership Manager, and you can reach me at ksolomon@csinet.org. Especially if you have any questions about the upcoming CSI events at Constructs, I'll be your go-to point for that and can really give you some great information.
And again, I'm Matt Fox, Community Development Manager at CSI. My email you see on screen here, mfox@csinet.org. And I don't think I've mentioned it on this call yet, even though I referred to you all as being, I guess, in the same field as me. And that may seem confusing since I'm talking to you as a nonprofit organization association manager. But I actually did get my start out in the architecture world. Got my degree in architecture and originally actually started in engineering and worked my way through, did some construction jobs, interned in a couple of different firms. So I actually do have some of the same knowledge and probably the same education as some of you on the call. So I really do see this as well. I may be on the other side now. I may be, putting together these webinars and hosting web pages of professional development. I do also come to it from at least the same starting point as a lot of you and would love to be able to share my experiences as well. And see how maybe I differ from yours and so forth and so on as we go on. So I guess, Caitlin's the good person to ask you for events and construction and everything else. But I guess if you have questions about the industry itself, more specific questions, you just want to know more about my own background in the construction field and how I got to not be in the construction field anymore, feel free to drop me emails or tweets as well. And I'm always happy to share that story and get viewpoints on different ways of getting to where you want and what's referred to a lot in the industry as the non-traditional career path. So feel free to email me whenever you like.
And as Matt and I both mentioned, a big part of this campaign is to also get information from you. This is all about being collaborative and sharing what you know. So if you have any resources that you would like to add to the library, you'd like to present us, whether or not it be white papers or industry blogs or articles, again, feel free to email us. We're always looking to add, and we understand that all this content is not going to come from Matt and myself. There's a reason that we are creating this as a community. So again, we'd love for you to join us. Bookmark the YPS microsite and get ready for August as we launch our first live webinar. Thank you guys so much, and we look forward to spending the year with you.
Thanks, everyone.